Hello everyone and welcome to our channel Career Talk. My name is Sunil Sharma. I'm an Agile consultant based in Netherlands, and at Career Talk we are bringing industry experts from around the world to share their real life experience and insight with us. Friends, this is part 2 of our session with Arijeet, where we are discussing project manager interview questions asked at top companies like IBM, Accenture and Infosys. I've added the link to part 1 in the description back, so please make sure to check it out later on. So with this, let's welcome Arijeet. Uh, Thank you, Arijeet, again coming back to our channel. So over to you, Arijeet.
Yeah, thanks, Sunil. It's always a pleasure to be in your channel, and I look forward to a engaging conversation.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you. Okay, so let's start then. Uh, so the first question, not the first one, but the seventh one. So the seventh question is, how do you decide the frequency and the format of a project? What basic things which we should remember as a project manager when we start the project?
Yeah. Yeah, the frequency and format of a project or the steering committee meetings that we typically are part of, that's a very key aspect of governance. But even before we go into that, what starts off is stakeholder engagement and then communication management plans, right? So that actually guides how we interact with stakeholders. So before we decide on a meeting format or frequency, the methods that I've typically employed is again quite much in alignment with some of the strategies that suggested by PMI over the years as well. So I identify stakeholders and gather their requirements and expectations. I then try to look at the various roles of the stakeholders and their possible impact, and then place them on what we call a power interest grid. It's a simple grid where there are people with high interest, high power, low interest, high power, high interest, low power, and then low interest, low power. So when I put stakeholders in these four quadrants, this will actually determine my engagement strategy with them. Say, for example, I have a sponsor who has got a high power by default, and they are also highly interested. So I will manage them very closely. A lot of my team's efforts would go into this particular stakeholders engagement. Likewise, there might be as functional managers. So today we all work in matrix environments where we take in resources during the course of a project or a program. And a functional manager who essentially 80% of your team reports to could be a person with high power, but they may not be highly invested. So such people, I would definitely keep them satisfied and look at their requirements and expectations, which is the next level. So likewise, there could be a specific vendor, or there could be some SME who may be highly invested, but they may not have that kind of power. So I would keep such people informed and so on. So this initial assessment paves the way for preparing a proper engagement and a communication plan where we can come up with the communication requirements, right? So once we do the stakeholder analysis, we also discuss governance with them. This includes how we want to engage, what kind of information they need, and how often. And during steering committee meetings, I clearly outline what will be discussed and why. For example, we might agree that we will discuss only the high priority risks, number one. And number two, we will also discuss decisions that a steering committee member needs to take during that meeting in order to help us avoid missing any project milestones or objectives, right? So to the frequency and format of the project and the steering committee meetings would depend on the project complexity, the risk level, and specific stakeholder needs. So there's no particular prescription, but again, for high risk or very fast-paced projects, depending on when we want to deliver, weekly operational or meetings are very common. And of course, once a month, steering committee meetings at a program level. So essentially, that's how I kind of tailor the project of the steering committee meetings based on the stakeholder engagement strategy and the resulting communication plan that comes out of the strategy. Of course, stakeholder engagement is a continuous process. So once certain stakeholders leave or there'll be other stakeholders, this frequency and format of these meetings will change. And as a project or a program manager, I keep in mind that this is about to change. So again, to summarize, what's key is that I always prioritize transparent communication and efficiency when it comes to the decision making. So what do you do?
Wonderful, Arjit. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, let's move on to our next question. So how do you ensure that your team follow a standard frameworks or specific methodologies during the execution phase?
Yeah, great question there. So in order to ensure that we as a team adhere to standard framework, I start by what we call a team charter. This is again a very strong recommendation from PMI as well, that as the project gets kicked off and we have a project charter, we also start off with a team charter. So essentially, this document is a result of the team's discussions, and eventually we outline our ways of working, certain ground rules, and acceptable behavior. And that's one aspect. And the second is I also assess the team's knowledge of any chosen framework, whether it's a Scrum or a Kanban or a hybrid mode, or the overall approach, whether it is Agile, Waterfall, etc. Now, basis this gives an opportunity to look at any skill requirements when it comes to understanding these frameworks, because this is something that we'll be using on a day-to-day basis. So if we are not able to get the team members trained on it, it would definitely become a problem and it will impact the efficiency of the team. So during this process, in my experience, I also have seen some projects have an agile coach at a more central level. So I take their inputs as well. And then as a team, we decide how we will use these tools from the start to the finish as part of the product deployment or any other process for which we have decided to use this framework and methodology, right? And in my experience, typically using a tool like Azure DevOps serves the entire product management cycle, right from the feasibility till the time the product or the service goes to the market. Right? So essentially, my approach is always that I engage the team, the coaches, and also the product owner during and this is from my real experience as part of adaptive product development over the past few years, both at my last engagement with IBM and also with EY. And with respect to whether adherence takes place or not, again, we live in an agile world, so there's nothing that we are trying to impose on anybody. Imposing something in terms of compliance that would not work. So we have retrospectives during during agile events, and then where we get the team feedback on the effectiveness of the frameworks that we are actually using. And if you think that if a part of a framework or a methodology or a process is not adding value, then we decide to remove it. Right. So again, to summarize, when we talk about ensuring adherence, it's always a collaborative effort, which is built on the trust rather than us continuously or close monitoring. And in my experience using this approach, the programs and its teams were quite successful when we followed a scaled agile approach while we were implementing the digital transformation initiatives for the client which I spoke about in the oil and gas sector. So that's about my perspective on this.
Wonderful, Arjit. Thank you for that. Okay, with this, let's move on to our next question. Again, I think it's an important one and all project managers must know this. So the question is, what are the different processes do you use to continuously check the quality of your deliverables? Arjit?
Yeah. So before we talk about quality, we need to understand that we start by preparing a quality management plan in alignment or in discussions with experts or even with stakeholders. Now, what this plan and what the benefit I've seen from this plan is that it broadly aligns the project or the program quality with the organization's goals. So we cover the project and the product quality, right? So, and based on that, we also come up with a strategy as to how we will be investing the time and resources to meet the quality objectives. Now, coming to product quality, typically in product development, we have testing cycles, which could be manual or automated or a combination of the both. And these tests would assess the product features over multiple iterations, leading to the final customer release. So internally, the team might use both manual and automated strategies. And when it comes to user acceptance, that would ensure that the business satisfies the product for the deployment in the live environment. And over the past few years, the trends that I've seen is that there is a lot of emphasis on automated testing. Once we have completed a prototype and we've gone through a few cycles, we start automating the test scenarios and then integrating it continuously. And this has actually been helpful in maintaining high quality deliverables, typically in agile or adaptive environments. The second aspect is, of course, the project quality, the quality of the project deliverables. So we have, and in my experience over many years, this has typically involved project audits based on very specific project management criteria and some key responsibilities around that. So it is very specific, and we design this for that customer and the project environment that we are in. Some of it also, there's another name to it. There's also called delivery assurance or service assurance reviews as well. And these reviews typically look at the project or the program from many angles, essentially covering stakeholder engagement, risk management, budgeting and cost control, outcomes and benefits, and overall governance. So I have actually been part of both designing and implementing these sort of audits and also participating in project and delivery assurance reviews in various roles over the past several years. So that's been my experience with respect to project and product quality.
Wonderful, Ajit, for that detailed, elaborated answer. Wonderful. Uh, so, friends, we are halfway through our session, and I'm sure you have found it valuable. Like me, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. So, please, I request you to take a moment to hit the like button. And if you're not subscribed yet, please do so. So, yeah, now that you have liked and subscribed, let us move on to our next question. So, the next question is a little bit on a technical side. It's from cloud and the compliance part. So, the question is, how do you manage a cloud migration, or let's say a AI implementation on a platform like GCP or Azure?
Yeah, great question there, Sunand. And I will try to articulate my answer based on one or two experiences, essentially uh, building and rolling out AI ML meeting optimization product in a previous tenure at EY. And it was a new experience. And managing an AI implementation on an Azure platform, definitely it was a phased approach. And this product, it was a first of a kind solution for the firm. And it was decided to be deployed to Azure Cloud. So first step, I would try to understand what we did was we tried to understand the key priorities. And this was before the age of generative AI. And of course, we had to have teams that involve skills and coding in Python, C++, and other technologies, and also knowledge of various AI and ML packages that existed for building that were required for the AI model. It also required understanding of various APIs, the SOAP and the REST APIs for various technical integrations with other platforms and systems. So we had the complex challenge of the skills on the one hand, the Python programming, then Azure SQL database was the database requirement. And we also needed tools for integration using the SOAP and REST APIs. Now, the main challenge for me as a program manager and also the product owner on the other side was ensuring that whatever skills that we're looking at were the right fit and available within the budgeted costs. So we partnered with another major consulting unit within the firm for the initial product build out. And we also leveraged Azure engineers and database specialists internally within the shared services GDS function. And we came up with a plan that kind of ensured that the front end, the middle layer, and the back end work perfectly within the whole Azure ecosystem. The second aspect, which was also important, was of course the managing the licensing and also the Azure costs, which were also factored as part of the budget. So obviously we didn't initially know how much we would like to scale this up to, or where we would end up, since we were going in a very phased manner, building part of it, taking feedback from stakeholders and users, and then going forward. But we had a tool that tracked our consumption, and it was a very seamless tool, and it helps us estimate future computing needs and in alignment with the product roadmap, which also came up with a period of time. The third aspect which came into the picture when it came to this first of a kind implementation in Azure was the involvement of we call it the GRC, the Global Risk and Compliance Team.
Mhm.
So for the first of a kind project, the IT security and legal compliance had a lot of questions. They focused on the data security, the privacy, and also the accuracy of our recommendations. This was also the backbone of what this optimization product was supposed to do. So again, there were a lot of technical interactions. Essentially, we wanted to understand how we are going to be using that MS Graph API to fetch the data, the participants and the related data, and why we have chosen one integration method over the other. What was the impact on hardware? What were there any hardware requirements, etc. So this was a pretty challenging phase because on the one hand we were building it out, and we came to a point where we had so many questions in front of the team. So again, we would appreciate the fact that it was something new to the organization, to the firm, and the risk and security team were also up on their toes, and they also wanted to better understand how this would shape up, how such a product would shape up in the organization. So essentially, as a program manager, managing these technical elements along with the progress of the team and the costs were my top priorities in the initial phases. And as we built out more, we learned more about the scalability aspects of security with a lot of support from the GRC team and also the Azure and the cloud infrastructure team. We also realized the benefits of Azure and how a product eventually performed, in fact, quite well within this whole ecosystem. So yes, so in summary, we had these challenges initially when it came to the technical aspects, but with time we were able to scale up and develop a usable product which was appreciated by the end users.
Wonderful, Arjit. Thank you for that. Now, my next question is also somewhat related with AI only. So, as you also mentioned that you already worked on similar project in EY. So, can you describe your experience managing a project from a AI model design to the deployment? Like, if you can explain the complete step-by-step processes or complete life cycle, that will be great.
Okay. Yeah, so I will again go back to the same example that I had given as an answer to the last question. So this particular product actually was a multi-year development and pilot of a AI/ML powered meeting optimization tool. And my experience in learning a new area, especially in AI and ML, a few years back before generative AI, it was quite fulfilling overall for me and the team. And we spent close to 2 to 2.5 years uh, developing, building, and also rolling out this product within the organization. So how we started off with a bit of history was we had an initial kickoff workshop, and by then we also had our internal delivery partner, the relevant stakeholders. So we had an AI model design expert and also a cloud infrastructure architect. We used I remember one of the very senior partners who I would put as a high interest, high power stakeholder. He suggested a method called SIPOC, SIPOC. It stands for Suppliers, Input, Process, Output, and Customers. Essentially, how we use this method was it helped us map out key elements within this whole process. We ended up mapping out the entire flow end to end, putting all the various features and the functionalities within as process input and output. And this diagram or the sketch helped us to when it came to designing the AI model and how it would function. So again, as we came out of this workshop, we further elaborated upon me as a program manager and the product owner. We built out a broader product roadmap, and this program detailed the scope, the skills, and the deployment timeline across various phases, starting with a prototype. And coming back to the AI model design aspect of it, a crucial part was, of course, the data collection and the preparation of the AI model itself. And again, it required close engagement with the governance, risk, and compliance team to ensure data privacy, security, and also proper data retention. So we also carefully manage the various data sources and ensure the compliance during the training of that model and also the validation. So what we found out was iteratively refining the model's performance was also the key to developing its function. So that was a very key phase where we had a lot of continuous model development and training. And while we continued to develop the other features across the various phases, we eventually came to a final phase that also involved integrating this tool with another workflow within the firm, and we deployed this successfully to a bunch of pilot users in a particular country. And it was met with a lot of success. There was a very positive client feedback and also a commitment to use this product, which would definitely help on saving the travel costs, which was one of the expectations or the benefits from this program. So I hope that answers. That was like a summary of me and my team's
Yeah, I have
experience in
one.
the AI project.
Yeah, I have one follow-up question on that. So you mentioned about privacy and the compliance. So again, like what steps do you take to ensure the data privacy and the compliance in AI project specifically? If you can throw some light, that will be great.
So again, Sunam, from my experience, it was I can only take that project as an example because that's been my only experience. So we have the various questions around data retention, data privacy, that's typically run by the security and legal focal. So they would definitely want to know a few things around how we are using the data. Are we ensuring the right level of protection when it comes to identifying any individuals or roles, etc., etc. So that was those were some of the data retention, security, and privacy. Those were actually the key discussions when it came to how we actually model and use this particular AI model.
Okay.
So I think the next question is what you had asked, if I'm not wrong. What you wanted to know what steps you take to ensure data privacy and compliance.
Correct.
Okay. Sorry, I thought this was the next question. I misread. Okay. So yes, I think what I will do is maybe I will just tell a little bit more about this tool per se. And so this particular application was meant to analyze meeting data. And it looked at the meeting types, whether it is a project kickoff or a workshop or training or a one-to-one meeting or a leadership meeting, etc. And also the chosen technology. So the firm had invested in a lot of technology which was lying idle, and they just couldn't bridge the gap between the availability of the technology for a particular meeting and also the organizer or the participants' availability, because of which people used to just travel at the drop of a hat. And this tool actually was meant to fix that issue. So it used to suggest non-travel options. And the way the model worked is the system learns the organizer preferences over time. For example, if you are a meeting organizer and you consistently picked non-travel options or one where one particular participant travels, the AI model needs to remember this. And these preferences help the AI give better recommendations for future and similar meetings. So as I said, from the GRC perspective, the data security and privacy were crucial. And the application handles information, sensitive information about meeting organizers, participants, and their location. And it also stores personal preferences. And what was key to the conversations was protecting the data to ensure that it is essential to maintain trust and the privacy rules. And keeping this information secure also prevented any misuse and also protect the individual's privacy. Right. So those were some of the conversations that we had specifically with the risk and compliance team around the AI model. And in order to implement this again, we started with a prototype. And what we did was we focused on collecting and preparing the meeting data for the AI model. And then we would test and train the model and ensure that it gave accurate recommendations. And finally, of course, the tool would be integrated into the existing system. And also, we integrated this, I recall, with the travel portal as well before deploying it to end users. So throughout the process, again, the close engagement with the security and compliance teams is really essential for data handling when it comes to AI projects.
Wonderful, Arijeet. Thank you. And I think we are good for today, Arijeet, with all these questions which you have already answered. So thank you, friends, for joining us for today's session. We hope you found it helpful and informative. And if you enjoyed the session, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And we hope to see you in our next session very soon. Until then, take care. This is Sunil Sharma signing off along with Arijeet. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
And thank you, Arijeet, one more time.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.